My name is Adrian Spiga for DeviceLock. DeviceLock is an independent software vendor. We do endpoint device control and data leak prevention. Basically what we do is help organizations lock down their PC infrastructure so that employees just can't arbitrarily send stuff to other employees or people outside of the network, or just drop things onto USB drives and portable storage. We're really a leader in the device port control. We have a lot of customers, and these are paying customers on a lot of endpoints, and we deploy all the way up to very large deployments, 71,000 in one particular financial services firm, and to retail and to the many tens of thousands, and healthcare is a huge customer of ours, as well as down to little offices with just 100 computers as well. So we really go the full gamut there. If you look at the root causes of a data breach, everybody's worried about the hacker or the malicious criminal attack. Well, in reality, most of your data breaches are not going to happen from a malicious outsider attack. It's going to happen through either negligence or a system glitch. People, again, spend a lot of time securing their outer perimeter, and it's like an egg. It's hard on the outside, really soft and squishy on the inside. Very important that you look at not only your perimeter, but from the inside out, and being able to manage the negligence issue. And employees are always going to be negligent. You can do a lot of training to reduce the amount of negligence, but negligence is going to happen. So how do I mitigate that negligence? So some more statistics which are pretty interesting. 73% of IT staff use USB drives without authorization. So these are the people that you're supposed to trust, and 73% of them use it without authorization. What do you think about your employees? And here again, 72% of those people, of the IT staff, have lost drives without notifying anyone. And this is supposed to be your experienced group of people that's losing that information. What are your employees doing? And as of the last Ponemon report, on average, the cost of a breach is $200 to $250 per record. At the $250 range is healthcare and finance, and at the $200 range, I believe it's retail and like manufacturing. But this is, it seems almost astronomical, especially when you start to think, wow, how many records could I put on a little USB flash drive? Or God forbid, somebody throws in a 1 terabyte USB drive and dumps everything onto it. It could be into the millions, and even, depending on your organization, into the billions of dollars. And by the way, there are organizations that are being sued, and they have billion-dollar breach cases. And this is absolutely very interesting. I had a hard time believing it, but it was definitely an information week. In the past 2 years, and this is a year old, but it's still pertinent to this day, 70% of businesses have traced the loss of sensitive information to USB flash sticks. Now, that doesn't mean that 70% of the breaches happened because some person, dumped data and took off with it. It's a lot of that also happens to be because somebody stuck in a USB drive that had a virus on it that went and penetrated the network and then transmitted that information outside the network. So that is a huge, huge problem. At the very least, I think any organization really has to look at their USB drive policy, the removable drive policy, and even their CD-ROM, at the very least, to really get a handle on locking down a lot of those potential risks of losing information. What looks more like a threat? The person on the right's the bigger threat. Just one of your employees doesn't think about it, post company information onto Facebook, by the way, which there's a recorded event of somebody taking a picture at a company party, posting on Facebook, and they have their merger plans in the background. So something as innocent as posting something onto Facebook can have dire consequences for a company. What does DeviceLock do exactly? Well, we're an endpoint solution that really focuses on the PC itself. And what we do is give you the ability to control with great granularity the physical devices that you're plugging into those PCs out there. giving you the ability to limit the amount that the USB sticks can be used, smartphones, iPads, digital cameras, how much the CD-ROMs can be used, by whom, when, and what can be transferred, giving you a lot of granularity with a lot of ease. Furthermore, we can even work with network-borne threats, social networks, even company email, personal webmail, cloud file sharing. I mean, it's really kind of scary that somebody can just take stuff, dump it right onto their Dropbox account, and they've got everything in the cloud. And again, maybe some firewalls will handle that stuff, but what about when that employee goes off network? They take it to their home network. They go to a Starbucks. A lot of vulnerabilities start opening up there. So how do you manage those network-borne threats? What we do is we kind of take care of it all in one shot. We're a software-only solution, so the nice thing is we deploy just like antivirus. If you've deployed antivirus, you pretty much know everything you need to know about deploying our stuff. No additional hardware is needed, so that's one of the big advantages between us and a lot of the other guys. A lot of the other guys out there that you'll see, well, I'm going to have to install servers, and I'm going to have to install all kinds of databases and re-architect my network to get the stuff to work. Technically, you can just deploy our stuff like antivirus and pretty much just run it all through Active Directory group policy. So literally, if you know how to deploy antivirus and you know Active Directory group policy, you know our product. Very simple. So rather than taking weeks and months and doing this really complicated rollout of DLP, wow, you mean I can just deploy it like antivirus, go into my Active Directory or a group policy snap-in, and directly through Active Directory start configuring policies on who can use USBs, who can use CD-ROM, Wi-Fi, you name it. So that, I think, is a huge advantage with us, that you'll be able to control all that very quickly and easily at a low cost point, not only from the hard dollar perspective of the purchase, but now you don't need a 3-month project to roll out DLP. It can be done very quickly and easily, and you can move on to the next thing. And, you know, SC Magazine even agreed with us on quite a few of these things as well, giving us very high marks and ratings for our capabilities. So really there are 3 components to how we can help you. So it's not take all or take nothing. With us, you can actually deploy in phases or deploy all at once. So we have 3 components. We have our core product, which is basically our DeviceLock Core, we call it. And what this allows you to do is basically just deploy the agents out there, and now it can go out and start controlling all the physical devices. So with our DeviceLock Core product, boom, right away you can take care of that USB threat that 70% of data breaches happen through right then and there. Take care of your USB, CD-ROM, Wi-Fi ports, floppies. I mean, pretty much you can see right there in the console all the different things that we can work with. As you can see, if you see this console, you probably recognize it. It's basically group policy. That's the beautiful part about DeviceLock. We could thrill you with a lot of great, beautiful GUIs with big charts and all that fun stuff, but what good is it if I have to spend 3 days in a training class to understand it? You guys already understand it. You guys have plenty of time to go and work on other things. You don't want to be spending it learning a whole new interface or something that's relatively simple to deploy. The next one is Network Lock. It's a plug-in to our DeviceLock Core, but now it extends it from the physical devices that are connected to the machine out to the network. So now I can control FTP access and instant messaging access, the ability for somebody to transfer stuff to their webmail account, which is kind of crazy. You know, how many employees, I'm sure most of you guys, hey, you know, email isn't working or whatever, I just need to transfer this, I'm just going to throw it through my Gmail account, I'll just throw it through my Yahoo account. Well, now you can control that whether they're on network or off network. What can they transfer from that laptop? That we have is Content Lock. Content Lock is great because now, instead of just having simply on-off or specifically file type protection, now I can say very specifically what kind of content are people allowed to transfer. For instance, in healthcare, I could say, I don't want anybody to transfer client ID numbers, but in my accounting department, they need the ability to transfer client ID numbers. So in my accounting department, I'm going to let them transfer anything with any file with a client ID number on it. But if they do, I want to keep a copy of that data on my network so I can go back forensically and see who had access to what and when. Very, very powerful tool. Again, like in HIPAA and PCI and SOX, we have a whole sets of rules that you can implement very quickly that says, hey, anything with a disease, like in HIPAA, for instance, anything with a disease name that is sent to a USB drive, stop. Stop and keep a copy of it, too. So because I want to know who was the offender, who attempted to transfer that data. I want to see what that data was so I can use that as a training tool and go back to that doctor, nurse, or healthcare professional and say, hey, I saw yesterday you tried to transfer a transcript and you shouldn't do that, and this is the reason why. So it's a great training tool as well. Great for auditing the entire network. What I'd like to do at this point is actually turn this over to Dave Mathieson, who is our resident guru and engineer and account manager, and he's going to take over and kind of show you some examples of really cool examples of what you can do with DeviceLock very quickly and very easily. So Dave, I'm going to make you a presenter here.
All right, thanks Adrian. Well, as Adrian showed, we operate the product primarily through group policy if you're an Active Directory environment, and you showed the different screenshots, and here's just an example of our GUI again inside of a group policy editor. So your Windows administrators who have been trained on this for many, many years will be very comfortable with how to navigate our product, how to set our product, and how to deploy our product through group policy, both the installation of the endpoints through an MSI software installation group policy object, and then group policy objects at the various OU levels for the settings. And so very straightforward. What I'll be doing today is showing you an alternate console as well, our Enterprise Manager console, which can work in any environment, whether it's a Novell or LDAP or Workgroup or even any Active Directory environment as well. But we'll go ahead and show that in addition. In the interest of time, I've already set a policy, and what we're starting off very restrictive here. And of course, you're normally aware that when you plug in a USB drive, you pretty much have full access to it. Well, I went ahead and locked that down so that I am not able to plug in a USB drive, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate what we do when that happens. So, and I'll show you the various ways we can notify the user base that they're not allowed to use these devices anymore. So the first error you see is one from Explorer. We do allow the device to mount and give it a drive letter, but we check your particular logon authority and say, okay, do you have access to USB and removable? And our policy says, no, you don't. Someone else that logs onto your machine might have that ability, or someone using a shared terminal service session or Citrix session or other Windows session might have access. So we do allow that to a point, and then we check your particular access based on your group membership, your user account, your time of day, day of the week, other contextual parameters that you can put in place with DeviceLock. So we show that here. We also show our custom message. So it actually tells you what the device is. Sorry, you don't have permission to use this particular device. Please contact your system administrator. And we also can use this as, Adrian said, a training opportunity. We have an applet in the control panel if someone wants to request an exception device for use on a temporary basis. Then we have a way of doing that, whether you're online or offline. And you share information about that device through a very secure process with the DeviceLock administrator, and they can choose whether or not to give you exception access to the normal policy, whether, again, you're on the network or even off the network on a laptop out in the wild. So you have a very secure process of providing exception access as well. I've also shut down, for our network lock protocols, I've also shut down our ability to use Yahoo Messenger, so I'll go ahead and show how that works. It will launch the application, but it will not allow you to sign in. And again, these are contextual security items here, and we'll get into the content in a moment. So you see that it did try to launch and is going to try to sign in. It says, sorry, you don't have permissions to access Yahoo Messenger. Maybe your organization has standardized on a different instant messenger, or you don't want any instant messages happening outside of your firewall, whatever the case might be. This allows you to control this again from an endpoint layer. And again, if that machine leaves your network perimeter where you no longer have those type of controls locally, then this will stay with the laptop as it leaves and allow you to still enforce that type of policy. So I quickly showed how that blocks. This is our alternate console, the DeviceLock Enterprise Manager. Again, this can work in any type of a Windows environment. And I'll go ahead and go into, I'm going to give myself a few more settings here so I'm able to show you some content controls. And that's the beauty of adding content level controls to contextual controls, is that you don't have to necessarily be as locked down as you might have before. You have the ability then to say, well, I trust you to use these devices, but I don't trust you with certain content. And that gives you the flexibility of putting those type of rules in place and still having the productivity of using these USB devices and attached phones and other devices in a corporate network. And you'll see that I have the ability to also, from a removable media standpoint, I have the ability to affect permissions on generic partitions and encrypted partitions as long as it's using one of the technologies that we integrate with from an encryption detection capability. So you can vacate your access again for generic partitions, which could be anything other, whether it's unencrypted or encrypted with a different technology. And then when we recognize that encryption and verify that that is an encrypted partition, then you can open up those rights for those folks. We also have, again, day of the week and hour of the day controls, which is fairly unique to our solution.
I think that's really powerful because a lot of times you have desktops that are just sitting out there, and cleaning crews come in at 11 at night and they have full access to your computers. Well, you can simply turn those USB ports off at those time of the day.
And this is, again, the content lock portion of the product. So what I've done is I have two different types of rules in place. I have basically thou shalt not run any executables from removable media. So I've denied read and write access to any executable. And this is not just what the file is named. We actually look into the binary of the file. So if something that was originally malware.exe is renamed happydays.txt, it won't get past this scrutiny. We'll definitely look in and see that it is an executable or a type of an executable, and we'll be able to detect that and block the access accordingly. We also have, I did a numerically conditioned social security number check. So in this case, I'll go ahead and show that real briefly. So this is the very elaborate regular expression we provide for you as a template, and all I've done to modify this was I said, well, I don't want it to only flag every time it sees a social security number or only block every time it sees one, because maybe there's legitimate reasons for people to have social security numbers in particular transactions. Maybe they're in the HR group, or maybe they're dealing with your medical insurance or whatever, and they really have to transfer these documents and things like that. So obviously you can make that based upon a group membership and have a different rule for that group. In this case, maybe you only care about a certain number of social security numbers. Maybe someone's refinancing their mortgage from the office over lunchtime and they send that back to their lender. Do you really want to block that transaction, or maybe just shadow that and have it there for prosperity to check and make sure people aren't doing real breaches? But that document might have your and your spouse's social security number in it. So again, do we really want to block that and kind of be the reason why DLP wasn't accepted in the industry very well 4 or 5 years ago? It was too draconian, as Adrian mentioned earlier. Well, for this example, I said, okay, well, maybe I only care about instances where it's greater than or equal to 3 social security numbers, because why would there be 3 if it's a mortgage refi, for instance? So that's what I've done here in this particular rule. Plus, you can validate against these expressions, so it's not just it's a very intelligent expression, so it's going to recognize, this looks like the format of a social security number, but it doesn't validate as one because it's outside the range and the bounds. Certainly, if you do one within the bounds, you can there verify what type of data this thing will capture. So I put these rules in place for me and push that template. In this particular interface, you push the template out, whereas if you were in group policy, once you change that, it dynamically moves out to all the endpoints. So I'm going to go ahead and put my device back in. Okay, you see that it's now scanning that device because I have a file type rule in place. I didn't get the blocked message, but I'll get some other pop-up messages coming. So here's the device. So then you see the pop-up message. It found several different files that appear to be, based on their binary check, executable. So it's giving you fair warning that, look, you're not even supposed to have read or write access to these, so it's giving you fair warning. What happens if I ignore that warning and go ahead and try to launch something like that? Sorry, you're not allowed to do anything like that at all. And it'll give you a separate message saying, look, you don't even have access to read these things, so stop trying. But I could certainly go into, log file and open that. I have rights to add other types of files here, as long as it's not an executable or something with a social security number in it. So if I want to create a new document here, I do have rights to do that. And I can just create a text document here, for instance. But what if we want to copy some data that might have some information in it that we care about? Well, here's a very easy example. Here's that mortgage application that I mentioned. So here's a couple different Social Security numbers, but there's two of them, okay? So if I want to move that from my hard drive over to removable media, okay, no problem. That's underneath the threshold of what I cared about seeing from a content standpoint, so great. But what about this one? Well, this might be an identity theft situation or something compromising people's identity or medical records or some other issue within the company. So I have more than three. So if I'm not in the HR group, maybe I do care about anybody sending out anything like this. So when I try to paste that one, sorry, you do not have permission to even read this type of file because it has a content rule that was in breach, and it takes that away. And I also had a read and write rule, so I got two different messages. You cannot read and you cannot write these. And that file is no longer available. So that gives you kind of a brief example of how we can manage on a contextual level and a content level. And I'll go ahead and show you briefly how we've been tracking that as well. As Adrian mentioned, a lot of this has to do with auditing and shadowing what's going on. And so you see all the different items we've been dealing with. Here's that SSN2 file that was a success. There's some other files here that we've been working with and we created, things like that. So I have the fully qualified machine name, date and time stamp, where it came from, the drive and everything that it came from, the actual device, all the detail on that particular device. You could track different devices in your organization, the fully qualified username. And then we can go into shadowing where we actually have a capture of the actual files themselves. You see that I had a failed event here, SSN3. I had a success event, SSN2. That's all good information. If I want to view that information in several formats, I can do that. So hexadecimal or autotech. So a forensic analyst can look at this without modifying the contents of the file or the attributes of the file. And again, you can keep track of your content rules. Say, well, okay, this was successful, this one failed. Well, I can look in there and say, well, that was over our threshold for how many socials can be captured. So this is an actual file captured during that process. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Adrian.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, why don't you go over some of the unique things that kind of make us different? Maybe the audience would like to know, there's a lot of different vendors out there. What makes us so different?
Well, I believe we covered it very well in the early part of the presentation, but we're the only product that we know about that works directly through group policy with an MMC snap-in. So there's no schema extension, there's no ADM or ADMX templates or anything kludgy like that. It's really an MMC snap-in, so you're natively working with our settings through group policy. And that allows us to scale to any size environment that Active Directory can scale in. I think they've proven they can get into several hundreds of thousands of endpoints managing through group policy. So we have that capacity as well. We've been at this a long time. We've been an endpoint security solution for over 16 years, so we're very intimate with how we can control different items of data loss and data leakage. Printing is the age-old one of, well, if I can't make electronic copy, then I can make a hard copy and go ahead and print that out. Well, we control a lot of different aspects of printing. And in 7.2, we'll actually be able to do content filtering against a print job before it goes out. Some other items I see on your list here, these are some 7.2 items that are coming out early this fall. Skype is a very difficult instant messenger to control. It's been designed to kind of find its way around network parameters and controls that people have so it can make sure that it works. Well, we've made sure that we can control that as you would like to. Exchange and MAPI. People do have gateway controls typically for their email, but what happens if you want to actually control it at the endpoint? So people aren't sending out even internal emails that have information in it that you wouldn't even want to have as an internal breach. When's the last time someone replied all and accidentally included someone's payroll information internally so everybody knows what the boss makes? That could be a sensitive information. So you can control these type of things at the endpoint with Exchange MAPI controls. You mentioned earlier the cloud file sharing issues, the Dropboxes and iFolders and the various Amazon S3 and those type of sites. We've abstracted those away as their own controls so that you can both whitelist where it's appropriate and also block that type of activity. Again, yes, your firewalls can typically do that, but as people move from maybe a 10 to 15 to 20% mobile environment to approaching 80 to 100%, that network perimeter no longer means anything. So you need to have these kind of controls on the endpoint. Moving down, we also are expanding our ability to work with virtual environments, especially with terminal services and client or Citrix type environments. We also work certainly in a VMware and Hyper-V environment, but we have to stay up with the trends of how people are computing now, and they're using a lot of these virtual systems, and we have to be able to protect those as well. And one of the big evolutions of our company and our solution is that we've been Windows-centric for many, many years. Well, we're going to add a Macintosh version. The ability to manage Macintosh is very important as people move towards a mobile environment. And I won't steal too much of your thunder there. I'll let you go ahead and go over that. But that's very important to our development.
Yeah, I'm actually very excited about, I'm kind of a Mac fan myself, and there really aren't any good solutions out there. All the major vendors really don't have a Mac solution. We're currently in Mac beta, and we should be having a release probably in the next 2 to 3 months, roughly, on the Mac product. But basically, as I explained earlier, we have the 3 different components of our product, which is the DeviceLock Core, the Network Lock, and the Content Lock. This really most closely mimics our DeviceLock, our core product on the Mac product. So basically, it allows you to block all physical ports, whether it's FireWire, USB, CD-ROM, even Thunderbolt. We'll be able to control all of that, give you the auditing and the shadowing of that on Macs. So very powerful, and especially I'm out of the Silicon Valley. I can't tell you how many people have Macs walking around here. So you know, having that, we're looking very forward to that. If you want to be part of the beta, please let me know. Happy to get you on the beta program. The beta actually works pretty darn good, so you'll get a good feel for how it works.
I want to thank you for attending this webinar and listening to the DeviceLock story. And I also want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, BorderLAN Security. And please contact them if you have further questions or what you would like to schedule a demo. You can reach them at 760-736-8100. Again, 760-736-8100. Thank you.